The ice in Ethan's whiskey glass had melted, diluting the burn, but doing little to settle his nerves. He rolled the glass between his fingers, staring into the amber liquid, barely listening to the laughter and clinking glasses around him. His wife, Rachel, was in the center of the room, a flushed glow on her face as she swayed unsteadily, lost in the haze of alcohol and celebration. She had always been the life of the party, vibrant, uninhibited, effortlessly charming. Ethan used to admire that about her. Now, it exhausted him. Tonight was no different. Another family gathering at their lake house. Another evening of Rachel drinking too much, letting loose while Ethan played the role of the patient, responsible husband. He had long accepted that the woman he married wasn't the same woman who now barely looked at him unless it was to ask for another drink. He exhaled slowly, shifting in his chair, feeling the weight of expectation pressing down on him. It had been years since Rachel had truly seen him, really seen him. Their marriage had become a performance, a script they followed, complete with staged smiles and empty conversations. But tonight something was different. Tonight he was different. Across the room, Noah caught his eye. He had always stood out, taller than most, with sharp features softened only by the easy confidence he carried. At 24, Rachel's nephew was 10 years younger than Ethan, yet there was a presence about him that made him seem older, wiser, in a way that unsettled Ethan. Noah leaned against the kitchen counter, nursing a drink, watching the room with quiet amusement. When he noticed Ethan looking, a slow smile curved his lips. It wasn't mocking or casual. It was deliberate, knowing. Ethan looked away, his pulse tightening in his throat. He shouldn't read into it. Noah was charismatic with everyone. He had always been friendly, affectionate in a way that was easy to dismiss as youthful exuberance. But lately, something had shifted between them, subtle, unspoken moments lingering just a second too long. A glance held across a crowded room, the warmth of a hand brushing against his arm. Accidental, perhaps, but tonight, that smile told Ethan it was anything but. Rachel stumbled into the seat beside him, her breath thick with wine and laughter. "Ethan," she slurred, leaning against his shoulder. "You look so serious. Relax, baby. It's a party." He forced a smile, placing a hand on her thigh, though the touch felt foreign, almost obligatory. "I'm fine," he murmured. She grinned lazily and pressed a sloppy kiss to his jaw before turning back to the conversation at the table, already lost in a new joke, a new drink, a new distraction. Ethan stared at the untouched food on his plate, his appetite long gone. "Not much of a talker tonight, huh?" Ethan glanced up. Noah had moved closer, standing at the edge of the dining area, his glass dangling carelessly from his fingers. His dark eyes gleamed with something unreadable. "Just tired," Ethan said, forcing nonchalance. Noah tilted his head, considering him. Or maybe just tired of pretending. The words cut deeper than they should have. Ethan opened his mouth, ready to deflect, but Noah had already turned, disappearing onto the back deck. The night air rushed in where he had been standing, cool and crisp, sending a shiver down Ethan's spine. He shouldn't follow. Shouldn't. Yet a few minutes later, Ethan found himself stepping outside, the door clicking shut behind him. Noah stood near the railing, the glow of the porch light casting sharp shadows across his jaw. The lake stretched beyond them, dark and endless, rippling under the silver wash of the moon. He didn't turn when Ethan approached, only took a slow sip of his drink. "You know," Noah said after a moment, "I used to think you were different." Ethan frowned. "Different how?" Noah finally looked at him, and for the first time, there was no teasing in his expression. Just something quiet, measured, like you weren't like the rest of them, like you weren't afraid to be honest. Ethan swallowed. "And now?" Noah smiled, but it wasn't the easy, charming grin from earlier. It was smaller, sharper. "Now I'm not so sure." The weight of the words settled between them, thick and suffocating. Ethan should have walked away then, should have laughed it off and gone back inside. But he didn't, because deep down, beneath the carefully constructed life he had built, beneath the mask he wore so well, he wasn't so sure either. And that terrified him. The house had quieted. The earlier energy, laughter, music, clinking glasses, had dissolved into a heavy stillness, broken only by the rhythmic hum of crickets beyond the lake house porch. Ethan sat alone in the dimly lit living room, one hand wrapped around his now warm whiskey, the other tapping mindlessly against his knee. From the bedroom down the hall, muffled sounds of Rachel's drunken murmurs drifted out, followed by the unmistakable thud of her collapsing onto the mattress. She was out for the night. Ethan exhaled, rubbing his temples. He should go to bed too. Should clean up the half-empty glasses and scattered plates. Should slip under the covers beside Rachel and pretend, just like always, that everything was fine. Instead, his eyes flickered to the back door. He didn't need to check to know Noah was still outside. He had seen him through the window minutes ago, his silhouette leaning against the railing, head tilted toward the stars. The air between them earlier had been charged, laced with something neither of them had dared name. But it hadn't faded. It had thickened. Waiting. Ethan's breath came slow and measured as he set his glass down and pushed himself to his feet. His pulse betrayed his calm exterior, thrumming against his ribs with each step he took toward the door. The night air was cool against his skin, a stark contrast to the heat curling low in his stomach. Noah didn't turn immediately. He was still gazing up, the soft glow of the porch light carving sharp angles into his face. When he finally did look over, there was no surprise in his expression, only expectation. "You always this quiet?" Noah asked, his voice smooth, but laced with something unreadable. Ethan huffed a quiet laugh. "Depends on the company." Noah arched a brow. "And what kind of company am I?" Ethan swallowed. His throat felt dry, but he forced himself to hold Noah's gaze. "The kind that asks too many questions." Noah smirked. "You didn't answer mine." Ethan hesitated. A sharp inhale. A beat too long before he muttered, "I don't know." Noah set his drink on the railing, then turned fully to face him. The air between them was thick, pulsing with something neither of them dared to acknowledge outright. But it was there, undeniable. "Do you ever get tired of it?" Noah asked, his voice quieter now, edged with something dangerous. Ethan didn't have to ask what it was. He knew. The weight of it pressed against his chest every day. The routine, the pretense, the years spent playing a role he no longer fit into. "Yes," he admitted. The word left him before he could stop it. Noah took a step closer, close enough that Ethan could smell the faint trace of his cologne, something warm, woodsy, mixed with the remnants of whiskey. He wasn't sure if it was the alcohol still swimming through his system or something else entirely, but he didn't move away. "Then why do you stay?" Noah murmured. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Because leaving means admitting I've been lying to myself." Noah's eyes darkened. "And you're okay with that?" No, he wasn't. Ethan ran a hand down his face, feeling the tension coil in his muscles. "Noah," he started, a weak attempt at a warning, but he had nothing to follow it with. No real reason to stop this. Noah's hand brushed against his. Just a fleeting touch, but it sent a bolt of electricity straight through him. Ethan tensed, but he didn't pull away. "You keep looking at me like that," Noah murmured, his voice lower now, his breath ghosting across Ethan's skin. "But you never do anything about it." Ethan swallowed hard. He could walk away. He could say goodnight, retreat into the safety of his bed, and pretend none of this ever happened. But that would be a lie, and he was so damn tired of lying. So when Noah reached out again, fingers curling around Ethan's wrist, he didn't stop him. "Tell me to leave," Noah whispered. Ethan didn't. Instead, he stepped forward, closing the last bit of space between them. His breath hitched as Noah's hand moved to his jaw, fingertips warm against his skin. Their eyes met, searching, questioning, waiting. Then, finally, Ethan closed the gap. The kiss was slow, tentative at first, as if testing the reality of it. But when Noah let out a quiet sound, something between relief and longing, Ethan felt the last of his restraint snap. He deepened the kiss, hands gripping the fabric of Noah's shirt, pulling him closer, desperate to feel something real. Noah responded in kind, pressing against him, fingers slipping into Ethan's hair, tilting his head to deepen the kiss. It was electric, messy, aching, right in a way that nothing had felt in years. And yet, beneath the rush, the fire. A whisper of guilt curled in Ethan's chest. Not strong enough to stop him, but just enough to remind him that there was no coming back from this. He pulled away first, breathing hard. Noah's lips were slightly parted, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "We shouldn't," Ethan rasped. The words were weak, unconvincing even to his own ears. Noah's lips curled into a knowing smile. "But we will." And Ethan knew deep down that he was right. Ethan didn't remember moving. One moment, they were standing on the porch, the night air thick with tension. The next, he was inside, back against the cool wood of the hallway wall, Noah pressing against him, their mouths colliding in a feverish kiss. Everything else had blurred. His wife asleep down the hall, the moral lines he had spent years drawing and redrawing, the weight of what this meant. All of it melted beneath the heat of Noah's hands gripping his waist, his fingers fisting the fabric of Ethan's shirt like he was afraid to let go. Ethan should have stopped this. He should have pushed Noah away, stepped back into the life he had so carefully constructed. But when Noah's lips trailed from his mouth to his jaw, when his teeth scraped lightly against the sensitive skin of his throat, all thoughts of stopping evaporated. A sharp exhale left Ethan's lips as Noah whispered, "Still think we shouldn't?" Ethan didn't answer. He didn't trust himself to. Instead, he cupped Noah's face in his hands and pulled him into another kiss, deep and consuming, letting the desire take him. Noah led him backward, step by step, until the backs of Ethan's knees hit the edge of the couch. He sank down without resistance, Noah straddling his lap, their bodies molding together in a way that felt effortless. Too effortless. Noah's hands roamed beneath his shirt, fingertips grazing the heat of Ethan's skin, sending shivers across his body. Ethan let his head fall back against the couch, eyes fluttering shut as he let himself feel something he hadn't allowed himself in years. "Tell me this isn't the first time you've thought about this," Noah murmured, his breath warm against Ethan's ear. Ethan's hands tightened around Noah's hips. He could lie. He could say this was a moment of weakness, an impulsive mistake. But the truth sat heavy in his chest, undeniable. "I've thought about it," he admitted. Noah smiled against his skin. "Good." He shifted, pressing closer, and Ethan felt the last remnants of his hesitation snap like a frayed wire. Their bodies moved in sync, exploring, learning. Every touch was deliberate, every kiss an unraveling. Ethan didn't just want this, he needed it. Needed the way Noah's hands traced his spine, the way his lips moved with hunger and purpose. Needed the reminder that he was still alive, still capable of passion, of feeling something real. Time blurred. Seconds stretched into minutes, minutes into something deeper, something untraceable. Their movements slowed, the urgency giving way to something more intimate, more dangerous. Noah's fingers brushed against Ethan's cheek, his gaze searching. "You're shaking?" Ethan exhaled a shaky breath, barely realizing it was true. "I don't." He hesitated, searching for words that wouldn't come. Noah leaned in, pressing a softer kiss to his lips this time. "You don't have to explain." But that was the problem, because Ethan didn't understand it himself. The guilt lingered somewhere in the recesses of his mind, but it was drowned out by something louder, relief. Relief that, for once, he wasn't pretending. That, for once, he was letting himself be. As they lay there in the silence, bodies still tangled, Ethan let himself forget, just for tonight. But deep down, he knew the morning would come, and with it, the weight of what he had just done. The first thing Ethan registered was the cold. A sharp contrast to the heat of the night before, it clung to his skin, seeping through his bones as the first traces of dawn slipped through the blinds. His shirt was unbuttoned, hanging loosely off one shoulder, his body still entangled with Noah's on the couch. For a moment, just a fleeting second, he allowed himself the luxury of stillness. Noah's slow, steady breathing against his chest, the warmth of his fingers still ghosting over Ethan's side, the way his body fits so naturally against his own. It felt good, too good, and then reality came crashing in. Ethan stiffened, his breath caught, his heart lurching into his throat as the weight of the night settled on him like a boulder. What the hell had he done? Noah stirred at the movement, his lips parting with a quiet sigh before his eyes fluttered open. When they locked onto Ethan, a slow smile tugged at his lips. Unapologetic. Morning, Noah murmured, stretching lazily. You look like you just saw a ghost. Ethan swallowed hard, untangling himself as carefully as he could. His body ached, not from regret, but from the remnants of a night spent in reckless abandon. His mind, however, was in full revolt. We shouldn't have done this, Ethan muttered, rubbing a hand over his face. His voice was raw, barely above a whisper. Noah didn't look surprised. If anything, he looked amused. You're only saying that because the sun's up. Ethan shot him a sharp glance, but Noah only leaned back, resting his head against the couch cushions, watching him with that same unreadable expression. You knew this would happen, Noah said, voice softer now. You just didn't want to admit it. Ethan clenched his jaw. He wanted to argue, to deny it, to claim last night was nothing more than a mistake fueled by whiskey and loneliness. But the truth sat heavy in his chest. Because Noah was right. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. His choice. And now, he had to live with it. He pushed himself up, forcing his legs to steady beneath him as he reached for the buttons of his shirt. Every movement felt sluggish, like he was wading through thick, invisible mud. Ethan, Noah's voice was quieter now, almost hesitant. Look at me. Ethan didn't. He couldn't. Because if he did, he knew he'd see something he wasn't ready to face. Asterisk, asterisk, understanding. Maybe even something more, asterisk, asterisk. Instead, he turned away, heading toward the bedroom, toward her. The hallway stretched before him. Too long, too narrow. Every step felt heavier than the last, the walls closing in as he reached the door he had abandoned the night before. Rachel was still asleep, her body curled into the sheets, strands of hair tangled over her face. The faint scent of wine and perfume clung to the air, a reminder of the woman she used to be, the woman he had loved once, before time and distance turned them into strangers sharing a bed. Ethan stood there, staring, waiting for something, asterisk, asterisk, guilt, disgust, panic, asterisk, asterisk, but all he felt was emptiness. He had crossed a line last night. There was no undoing it, no rewriting what had happened, no taking it back. But the real betrayal wasn't the act itself. It was the fact that he didn't regret it, and that was what scared him the most. Behind him, the house was still, the weight of dawn settling over it like a final judgment. And Ethan knew, asterisk, asterisk, nothing would ever be the same again, asterisk, asterisk.